I told you a couple of times ago that Debbie and I are going to be traveling for open door libraries, and so I'm getting a few days ahead, give a little cushion. Sometimes when we travel, it's a little bit unpredictable what's going to happen. We went this morning and had our COVID test. We both passed, and I'm very grateful because I didn't have time to study for that test. I passed it anyway, and uh, so we have called this trip our God willing trip because there are so many variables today that have not been really in the picture in the past. And so far, God has been so good and gracious, and um, generosity from friends and supporters and partners has been amazing, and his provision in all of the ways that we can at this point think we need. He just keeps in my quiet time this morning, it was like, Lord, you just bombed me with good things and blessings. And so anyway, we're really looking forward to our time with our library directors in Berlin and our library directors in Prague. We love what God lets us do to give pastoral care, emotional, spiritual care to these people, that their life is ministry, but in in cultures that they didn't grow up in. Okay, anyway, that's why I'm wearing the same shirt. I could have changed, but blah, you guys get it. Okay, we're in First Timothy 3, and we're talking about the character qualities of the men who desire, who aspire to a noble task of overseer. In verse 2, Paul writes, "Now the overseer is to be above reproach, faithful to his wife, temperate, self-controlled." We talked about those four things already. I want to come back to the self-control aspect. Self-control, and we often will call that self-discipline, it actually is a fairly complex thing, but its definition is easy. When we were young and our kids were just, I mean, preschool kids, back in the day when we would get albums, when Debbie was teaching in our preschool, our learning school at Highland Park in Tulsa, this was would have been in the 90s. She got out a record to play for her little class, and when she pulled it out of the cover, it was the album size, and one of the kids in her class said, "Wow, that's the biggest CD I've ever seen." They had no idea what a record was. Anyway, but we bought a record card called Sir Oliver's Song. If you were raising kids in the 70s and 80s, you might have come across Sir Oliver's Song. It was a kids' church musical about the fruit of the Spirit. And it had a song for each one. And the song for self-control was, oh, forgive me, because I can only sing it. It was it was a very country and western sound. Self-control is just controlling myself. Self-control is just controlling myself. Thank you. I'll take a bow. See, the idea of self-control is simple. It's controlling oneself. What it looks like and how it happens and how consistently it happens, now that's a whole other issue. I have some friends that are very, very high on the self-control scale. And a number of them are very well-balanced I guess I would say even type people. Some, though, their self-control is in an effort toward perfectionism. And that almost always ends poorly for them, but boy, does it end badly for the people around them. You see, because a person who and I don't want to be unnecessarily critical of this because I fit in this category way too often. But if a person is a perfectionist, one of the things that they have to engage to get to a satisfying condition of perfection, relative perfection, is self-control. Sorry, if you're a perfectionist, I consider myself a recovering perfectionist, and I'm not that far down the line in my recovery. But here's the thing: if you are a perfectionist, even a recovering perfectionist, your self-control is never more than a breath away from other control, an attempt to control others to reach your objective. And that is no longer self-control. Have you ever worked for a micromanaging boss? Not fun. Not fun at all, especially if you have any measure of initiative or leadership skills. Most micromanaging bosses have disgruntled staffs. One of the characteristics of a micromanaging boss is they are no longer working from self-control, but from other control. Why is this important to me? No, for my own life, I want to step away from, at any opportunity, to step away from the urge to control others and to be perfectionistic. So for me, it matters. In the structure and organization of God's family, this older, mature brother who is put in a position, remember my theology of the family of God, their position, the role that they serve in this position as an elder or overseer is for the health and well-being of the family. Sometimes you have to make pretty direct decisions. If the house is burning, don't take a vote whether you should get out or which door you should use. Just get them out. Okay, but the house isn't always burning. Most of the time, we've got, when we lead, when we oversee, we have to do it realizing this, our decisions affect, for good or ill, the whole family. If a man does not have self-control, some bad things are going to happen. First of all, in his own life, he will find it impossible to be temperate. You cannot live a life of balanced moderation without self-control. There will be areas of a person's life that are simply out of control. And this is the thing about an imbalance in a person's life. Just like when the tires on your car are not in balance, it will eventually show up in performance. This is true on the human level. So that's one side of it. Here's the other side. If they don't have self-control, they will probably default to other control. And that is simply not healthy for a family. Okay, self-control. I could go on, but you get the point. And then he goes on. It seems like this is the most watered down of the list, maybe. respectable. Why is someone respectable? What makes someone respectable? Well, that's easy. They behave respectably. You see, respect is the result of several things. Respect is the result of others' perceptions of, I'll just use me. It is also the result of, from their perception of me, their perspective of me, they trust me. You rarely respect someone and not trust them. So trust is a piece of this. And really, all of that goes back to the behavior that I demonstrate. Respect is the result of making good choices. Okay, if a man is respectable, then his life story that we observe talks about it includes good choices. You know what else it includes? I think it includes good responses to bad things. All right, so respectable. What I look at that and I think that there's at least two kind of buckets I would put this respectability in. One is the people within the church. The people in this family have a high regard for him. They respect him because they respect his maturity, they respect his wisdom, they respect his decision-making capabilities on the basis of their history with him. Okay. And the other bucket is people outside the family also respect them. Why? Essentially for most of the same reasons. Because they found them to be truthful, reliable, they make good decisions, and they respond well when bad things happen. Okay. Respectable. And then one that you might not even, when I first studied this seriously, this one I saw and I thought, well, that's a little bit surprising to me. Hospitable. Let's set it in context. Today, in the Middle East, hospitality is one of the highest social values. This is true of Islamic cultures. It's true of non-Islamic cultures in the Middle East. It's that you open your home. And one of the greatest honors that you can have extended to you is an invitation to sit at the table and break bread with a family. It in our culture, come over and let's, grill some dogs and burgers, and well, that's a good thing, and that is hospitality, but it's not in the same category as this Middle East hospitality. I think what Paul is saying is your heart and your home must be open, and your desire is to be useful and helpful to people not normally under your roof. We live in an age where hospitality is hard, really hard. And I don't have time to parse it out and pull it apart the way I want to right now, so I'm going to hold off until next time to talk about hospitality in our culture, because I believe it's still essential for good leadership that there be a heart of hospitality for a leader. Well, come back to it next time. I hope to see you then, and God willing, I'll be in Europe next time on So Care with Stevie Boy.